for joining us this afternoon, and in particular thank you to our alumni who've travelled over to campus to give us the benefit of their experience in terms of their postgraduate studies and what that's led them to do further on in their careers. Perhaps it might be nice if we start with some introductions to let us know who you all are, and perhaps what you studied when you were here as well. That'd be wonderful. I might start with you.
So my name is Heanue. I'm a local girl, and I studied physics here. Studied it for 6 years, and then I went on to be to work in Intel, the local factory. And then I moved all the way to Cork, and I became a statistician in the civil service, and I've been there ever since.
I'm Gareth, McLoughlin. I came here in about 2003, down from Donegal. Hung around as well, right? But I did arts initially, so I did undergrad and postgrad across 5 years, and then I came back to do a part-time master's in the School of Business as well.
I am Paul McCabe. I did a BSc here in science, and then I went on to the PhD in biology. And then left for about 10 years, traveling around the world. So went to Michigan State for 2.5 years, working there, and then came back to London to UCL and was working there, and ended up in Oxford. And then from Oxford, not directly from Oxford, we had a baby girl, so I took a year off and was a stay-at-home parent. And then got a job in UCD in the School of Biology, and I've been there for about 25 years now.
So I came here as a mature student in 2011, and my undergrad was in community in New York. I went on then and I did my teacher qualification part 3 for adult education, and then I did my master's in adult and community education. So that's where I'm coming from in that space. In terms of career and where I've been, I've kind of went from that into the National Learning Network. I was teaching there for a while, and I've primarily then worked within the specialist education space and additional support needs, and presently working in the House of Oireachtas as a job coach. So that's me in a nutshell.
Fantastic. So quite a diverse group, which is wonderful. So I wonder perhaps if we could start. So I remember back in the day when I did my masters, it was a big decision. I remember it being like a big decision to take that step to do a postgraduate study. So perhaps you could tell us from your own experiences how that decision was and why you made that decision to take that kind of next step into that postgraduate study. Maybe we'll go backwards this time.
When I finished up my HDip, I just felt it kind of brought more questions, I guess, for myself than had been answered through that. And because the HDip was very theoretical, very practical, should I say, it was really it was making me wonder, actually, what does that look like in the abstract? And can I pull some of those concepts apart? And for me, it was just being really interested in the practitioner of adult education and how it works, how it operates, the differences, and kind of the impact of that. So, I guess it was really a passion that I had in the area, and I wanted to go on. And I knew, being really honest and realistic about it, I knew that in the job market, it makes sense. If you can, go on. And practically and financially, for me, coming back as a mature, I couldn't afford to do it if it was myself to come back. So I chose to go and take that step forward. So that was me.
I had a wonderful experience of being in the 80s when there was no jobs. So our class got us a degree, and about 25% went in to do the HDip in Maynooth and become teachers, because actually the science degree back then was set up as a teaching degree. So you got a science degree rather than a biology degree. And the other 75% just left and went around the world, and a small percentage then, the only thing that you could do if you stayed in Ireland was do a postgraduate degree. So I did a postgraduate degree, and it came through an internship in Phil Dixie's lab in the summer, and all of a sudden I discovered this is where I want to be. I never really had any plans or knowing where I wanted to be, but all of a sudden I was completely comfortable. So I said, can I do a PhD? And they said, yeah, but there's no funding. And I said, don't worry, I've got a job in Brady's Bar. And so I did a degree over 4 years, but I spent more time working in Brady's Bar and learned a lot from that as well. So so that's how I ended up in it.
Yeah, for me, I suppose when I was in Maynooth. It was laser focused on teaching as well, actually. In fact, doing the arts degree is typically what you're looking to do, right? Specialise in certain subjects. So for me, then it was to move into higher diploma in Irish history first. Then actually I was moving in the history direction, but history here took a bit of a pause that following year in the master's side. They were redesigning it. So actually that was a good opportunity to also beef up the geography side, right? So to come in with a dual education from a teaching point of view. And also it's worth noting that, I was supported through the Access programme a minute as well, which was really great, coming down from North Donegal, farmer's son, right? That business piece wasn't really running in the family. But that really supported, and obviously that supports not only into undergrad but into postgrad as well. But a little bit like the 80s, right? 2008 hits and the economic crash hits as well. So the whole teaching side in most roles and jobs, in fact, kind of changed the outlook. So for me then it was about pivoting into other areas. And in fact I was moving into business education. So learning and development is where my role has been ever since. And that's why I came back in 2013 to do a second master's, a part-time, while I was working. And that was to actually hone those skills, right? So it was a HR development master's then as well. So again, perfect opportunity to really get more industry-specific education into. So that was ideal for me.
I suppose for me, the choice was easy. I was really lucky. I got the Postgraduate Award in Science. So therefore I had the funding. So therefore I could do the Masters. So I did the Masters in Physics. And I suppose I had been lucky. I had been a scholar in the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies throughout my entire time in the college. So I'd always been embedded in research, if that makes sense. I mean, I was a woman. It was unusual in physics. So that was, and I would say now for people coming in, it's like a minimum requirement now. Everybody has a master's. I'm in the civil service. There is great opportunities in the civil service to do postgrads. You're actively encouraged. So if you don't have one, you're going to have to get one. And I just say it's much easier when you're here. It's just you're in the zone. So if you like study. I mean, if you don't want to do a PhD, for God's sake, don't do it. It's not going to do anything for you. But if you like study, stick it out. It is no weight to carry, and I figure when you're studying, you study, and be in the zone. It was a privilege.
Thank you, that's wonderful. So I'll open up the questions to everyone rather than that, because you all really spot, so just kind of, if something kind of strikes you, do kind of chip in. So I wonder perhaps how your postgraduate study has, or how it changed your views of what your careers could be or what you could do as a consequence of doing that.
I think, take it up there. I think for myself, just particularly within the teaching space and within the special education space, it was just kind of, it opened doors a little bit and it opened conversations a little bit. So people were like, okay, right, so you're interested in this, and it did equal then opening up opportunities because, I think it's a little bit changed now perhaps. Because as you said, I think it's kind of almost a standard now that people have a master's, and it's that dilution of it. But equally, for what I was doing, it was like, okay, you have it, you're going on, it shows, it indicates you're interested, you have that dedication. It's actually demonstrating some of those job applicable skills, I guess, in another way within the workspace. Yeah.
I suppose for me, it gave me access. You're considered at the time, and I even have a graduate now from Maynooth, and I think there's 13 people in his class. So classes still here are very small at a postgraduate level. So you have access. You went to the staff canteen. You saw, you worked as an invigilator, you did tutorials, you work in the lab. So you see it from another side, so it really does prepare you for the workplace in a very protective environment. It's really, and I would really encourage you, when you have the opportunity of having a postgrad, take the risk, push yourself. This is a place you can do that with no fear, And when you have that opportunity, make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. You've mentioned a couple of times already about the kind of skills and knowledges that you've developed as a consequence of postgraduate study. What would you say perhaps have been the most useful skills that you've taken from your postgrad and applied in the work you do now? Gareth,
yeah, sure. Yeah, even in my line of work right now, that whole idea of skills, right, and transversal skills is hugely important. And one thing that I would absolutely say from an undergraduate moving into a postgraduate point of view is that ability to become more specialist in a specific area, but also in nature, whether it's through the assessments that you're doing, through, if it's a master's and the thesis that you're doing, you're also picking up those additional skills that we're looking at from the point of view if this is something about influencing people, critical thinking, design thinking, right? You're really being pushed to think in the specialist way, whatever the subject area you're moving into is to think outside that box, right? You're moving away from the broad undergrad into very specific ways of thinking. And I think beyond just whatever the topics are within your module, those additional skills I think are really, really key. And I think personally, when I look at my undergraduates programs and how it pushed me, those are the big things then that stands out in the workplace, right? Because when you're talking about, yes, we have a high proportion of graduates in our workplace, but it's those additional skills that really help you to stand out equally as well, right? So, I'd always say is spend as much time thinking about those skills and how you're applying those skills to critical thinking, design thinking, influence, communication skills, presentation, find opportunities equally in your postgraduate to practice on those is definitely a biggie, and that's what helped me personally.
And I would agree with that. I mean, when you come into a job, it's assumed you can do the job. It's assumed you've got the qualification. So you can't go in, I've got this degree, therefore I have the job. That's not your unique selling point, So it's how you communicate, how you network with people. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And more importantly, how you get buy-in from other people to achieve it. Because you can't just do it on your own. So any experience you can have, take those opportunities at postgraduate level and use those then at interview and just keep building on them for your career, because yesterday's gone, you're here today, and what difference are you going to make today?
It's realising how broad you've come and what skills you have picked up. I think very often with postgraduate studies, because you're focused on a specific problem, your head's down and you've got to do this to get the MSc or get the PhD, you don't realise what you're picking up. And I've seen that in students. I run a lab and I've had 30 students that I've supervised now. And some of them will be, you'd be saying to them, do you want to apply for this position? And they say they don't have that skills. And I go, I'm an expert in that area. I'll teach you those skills. What I'm looking for is someone I know can learn. And I can see that from the postgraduate degree. So what I'm looking for is someone that can learn, someone that, I manage lots and lots of people, and there's two types of people. There's people that bring you problems and people that bring you solutions. And you really want the ones that bring you solutions. And if someone puts their head down and they work hard, it will be noticed. And if they do a good job, it will be noticed. I was Dean of Graduate Studies for a couple of years in UCD, and we were talking to industry. And we're trying to explain these transversal skills to some industry heads. And they were sitting at us going, we know they've got those skills. And we're going, well, why don't you employ more of them? And they said, they don't apply to us. We're desperate for these people with these skills, but because we're in business, they think they have to have an MBA, so they don't apply. So sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to realise what you've got, and you've got to get out there and put yourself forward and take that risk and take that chance. And not all of them will pay off, but some of them will pay off, and the ones that pay off are what change your life completely.
No, I was just going to say, I think something it's useful to do sometimes in all of life is kind of articulate what some of those skills are that you're building up as you go. So in a very practical way, if you're going to go to a job or you're going to apply or whatever you're going to do, whether it be that it's research, creativity, critical thinking, it's really, all of those things that you're doing, so your organisations, and it might sound very, very practical, and it might sound very, of course I'm doing them, but putting them down sometimes, especially when you're at that place of applying to a job and going to that thing of, putting them on a CV. Look at what you're doing, write them down practically and say, okay, clear head. And that's kind of a real kind of practical toolkit that you can bring forward. Because as was said, you sometimes just don't. Often in life we don't articulate the things that we're good at, but things that we're actually doing because we're just doing them. You're doing them all the time, so you think, oh sure, forget it, I'm doing it anyway. But if you're going for that job or into that space, if it's a specialism, name it, articulate it, put it down for yourself and have it as your own toolbox. Would be something I would say.
Yeah, no, great. I think that's really good advice. Just to pick up on that kind of, I think that's come up from a couple of you. Where you mentioned that it's not in terms of career progression, it's not something you do on your own, and you kind of clearly learn from other people. So I wonder, perhaps, if you're happy to, when you got out and finished your postgraduate work and you got into the kind of the world of work, was there a particular person perhaps who inspired you or mentored you, and perhaps what was that lesson they gave you that really kind of perhaps helped you perhaps realise what you had or inspired you to move forward and crack on?
There have been lots of people who've inspired me, and but basically it's always been with me, I've had massive imposter syndrome. So it's always people saying that you can do this, and I always thought the way to get over imposter syndrome was to go out and be successful at things, and then you have a body of knowledge going, look, I can do all these things. But it's not. Wherever imposter syndrome is in my brain is completely different than the different part of my brain I'm logical. So it's there, and I've achieved enormous things in life, and the imposter syndrome's still there. So it's just, so the people that mentored me would come and say, will you do this for me, Paul? And I would go, I haven't got the skill set to do that. And they said, just have a go with it and see how you get on. And I would have a go with it and generally be successful at it. So someone supporting you in that way, for me, was always a big mentorship. Someone trusting you.
Yeah. And I certainly say, when it comes to that mentor piece, having different mentors in different areas of your life is really important as well, because you do need that person that's got your back from maybe a professional point of view. You also need somebody looking out from a personal point of view to make sure that balance is right too, right? Because sometimes we can get caught up from that point of view. But equally, there's mentors that are supporting you within, are you thinking about your career? Are you somebody that's a sounding board that can help you to make sense of it all too? So sometimes it's not even, it's beyond thinking about that one mentor. And certainly for me, when I think about it, I think of this collection of different people and all these different conversations and advice that was given across different reasons and areas and situations. And actually, the more then I quantify what that mentor is there to support me with, the better the quality of the conversation and the better I can seek the right mentor for the right reason, whether it's a family member, as I say, maybe a manager in your role, right, or somebody else that's maybe just a peer, or somebody who's been through it all in the past, and you just need to get a sense of what's likely to be next as well. So that's personally been key for me, and I think it's really useful to do as well.
I've had several people that have been kind of good guidance through, and again I would have that imposter syndrome, that kind of feeling of, like, as an early school leaver coming into the space, I was like, oh, this is just not for me, okay, I can forget it, okay? And I remember the first time that I even came on campus, and I was with what was VTAS at the time, so I was going through the QQI group, and I came on, and it was just like, all right, yeah, lovely place, not going to happen. So later on, talking about that mentor piece, something that kind of resonates with me is to know your why. Like, why am I doing this? What is this? What's the thing for me? That kind of. So we can sometimes lose that why in our professional or academic lives and our personal lives, but to just anchor back a little bit and go, why am I doing that? So if you're doing your specialism in the study or whatever it is, why am I doing? What is that passion? Where is that coming from? And when it comes to the professional world, I find having your ask is really important as well. And that was something else that my mentor kind of supported me with. So having your why and having your ask, and if you have those two things, you kind of have a good rounded idea of where I'm going in my direction. So there would be pieces of advice I would have.
I suppose I couldn't pick out mentors really. It was just this whole idea in Maynooth when I was here was scholarship was king and everything would be done for you. I don't suffer from imposter syndrome. I came from a VC. half my class didn't go to secondary school. It never occurred. I applied for so many jobs. It never occurred to me that I had the skills to do the job. Once there was one skill, I mean, I had nothing to lose. There were no jobs. You know, it just, and I think it was just that ethos here that, you know, if you don't get your exams this year, well, sure, come back and do the repeats. It wasn't, there was no expectation. I think sometimes there's a lot of expectations on people today, and people can be very weighed down by their own expectations. And here it was just the love of scholarship, and there was no difference in who you were. There wasn't a distinction between a professor and a student. All we were just here to study and contribute, really, make a contribution. And I would, you know, that was a great gift that Maynooth gave, you know.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm going to open up to the audience for a couple of questions, but I'm just going to give you a heads up now, so you can think of a couple of good ones. But before we do that, I'll come back and say, perhaps, I mean, you're all kind of like wonderful examples of the benefits of going to university and doing postgraduate work. And you know, it's the first time I've met you, but I'm delighted to be hearing about your stories and your journeys that you've done. I wonder perhaps if you might share us then, what's the one thing that you're most proud of in terms of the careers that you've done as a consequence of having gone through your studies and gone out to the careers that you've got now? That might be a big answer, because everything. Sorry, Gareth,
Yeah, no, I look, I have immense pride in being an alumni of Maynooth University. For sure, I think the years I've spent here has been very good to me. I appreciate it, St. Mary, as well, in terms of that ethos that comes with it. In terms of pride, though, I do have pride, and I go back to that point, right? You finish what was this vision to move into, you know, primary, secondary school education. The world is not the same that you're leaving. However, you're still given those skills of adaptability, because you, living around Maynooth at the time, you learn a lot of great life skills, and it goes back to those other skills I mentioned as well. So that ability to then pivot into other roles, and the fact that I was able to come back to Maynooth to do with School of Business, doing a Masters in Human Resource Development, and actually that helped the trajectory for me to move into, again, those spaces with large multinational organisations and learning and development, to be then seen as a specialist in my own field in the professional world, and then also now to move and work for a large Irish organisation of Post to lead out on their learning and development across, you know, the nation, in respect of rooted back in all those things I learned as a postgraduate and undergraduate, for that fact, with Maynooth. That brings me a huge sense of pride, because that shows that, you know, I suppose that relationship, that academic relationship and the professional relationship, was, again, a match made in heaven in many ways, right? It just was fitted perfectly. So that's something I definitely always appreciate.
Thank you.
I think if you talk about mentors, like I have it's like, I mean, I came to Maynooth when I was 17. And I'm in UCD now, coming towards the end of my career. So I've never really been out of university. I'm totally institutionalised. But like, I mean, there are people that have helped me along, and it's a great privilege to be mentors to people. And sometimes you make a conscious decision, somebody needs a bit of help, and sometimes you just say something off the cuff, and you have no idea what he's saying. They come back to years later and say, you made a big difference. And I was going, how? I had no idea what I've done. So that's nice. And like, I mean, when I got this invitation as well, I said, yeah, I'll be back in Maynooth. And like, I mean, I get lots of invitations and I have to say no to most of them. But like, I mean, when I get called from Maynooth, I come back again, because I have a lot to thank Maynooth for.
Thank you.
Say proud. Say I'm proud to see here today, to be really honest. Like, from that person that walked on, like I said, to get through that journey to get to here. And I'm proud of kind of, you know, my role at the minute is the first of its kind within the civil service. That's supporting people, and it's supporting people with disabilities, supporting all staff, and it's nice to kind of support someone's voice and choice to be heard in spaces that sometimes just they're absent in, or they're not heard, it's amplified. So I'm proud of that. I think that's something I'm really proud of. So yeah.
suppose I'm a career civil servant, and there's no job satisfaction like working in the public sector. And so I've been in the statistics office here. I did 3 years in Eurostat in Luxembourg, did 5 years in WHO in Lyon. Ireland really punches above its weight. We speak English. We're very good. We tend to be chair of this, delegate to that, secretary to the other. You can see Pascal O'Donoghue now as second in command in the World Bank. And it's not unique, you know. I just think there's great training in Ireland, you know, and I'm very proud of being Irish, very proud of working in the public sector.
Thank you, it's wonderful. So I just wonder, we've got a few minutes before we pause to play. Do you ever have a question or two from the audience? Please.
If you could speak to your younger self, if you could go back in time, is there something that you wish you did or availed of during your time doing your postgraduate year? Maybe not so much time in grades. But is there something that you wish, like, that you could speak to current students and say, utilise this while you're here?
I'm sorry I didn't do sport. That is something. I did singing, I didn't do sport. I think it's really important. We are very, very sedentary, and you need to build it into your life. You know, and I've since dedicated 20 years of my life to Tai Chi. I walk as much as I can, you know, but really sport is so important. We are sedentary. We're no longer an agricultural society. Mind your health. That was the one thing I regret. Yeah.
Probably regret that I left after the football team got good, right? that was my problem.
You built the foundation.
I would certainly say, if I was looking back to my younger self, and I feel like plenty out of Maynooth, quite frankly, but yeah, I probably was actually hyper-focused on the other side, right? So there's so many other great clubs and societies and other avenues within the university that, again, go back to those different skills, right? You think about debating societies that was around, and there's other areas where you can find other ways to really hone those skills that are important for when you move into the workplace. And for me, probably, I was learning them probably in my first year in the role of professionally, fish out of water, but actually realising there's other avenues where you could have prepared for that as well. That's probably one thing I would have done slightly different, but the rest was good.
I don't think I have any regrets, because I didn't really believe in myself when I got here. I don't have a very good degree. I've got a general degree, and it's not a very good degree. Because I was too busy. Well, I met my wife here. So she has a degree and a PhD from Maynooth as well, and our daughter graduated 2 years ago with a Bachelor of Laws from Maynooth. So we're very disappointed in our son. He's in UCD. So no, I mean, I could go back and give myself advice, but if you give yourself advice, then your life turns out differently, and I'm quite happy with the way my life turned out. So all the good bits and the bad bits are making me what I am and want to be. So don't be dangerous to change anything.
I would say networks and connections. That's probably something I wasn't very strong on. And throughout, because a lot of the people that you're meeting that's teaching you, that's facilitating these, they're obviously specialists, they're experts in the field, they have such bodies of knowledge. And you might just see them as being, oh God, it's this person or that person, I have to go in and now I have to go and do 2 hours of this, and like, God, like. But you forget sometimes that those connections and those people have that knowledge and they have that specialism, so build those connections, talk to the people, try and like cross-collaborate, that creativity piece again, if you can. Try and build that in. Who do I see? How can I do that? And that was something, like I said, I was not good at, because I just really wanted to roll my own ship, if I'm really honest. I just wanted to get done, get through. And it was only later in my professional career that I kind of go, I wish I could pick up the phone. So yeah, that's really important. So I would say that would be the one thing that I do regret, but I would give advice to anyone, is build that bank.
I think actually that is a wonderful place for us to finish. We're out of time now. So can I ask us, the audience, to show our appreciation for our wonderful